The storm has murdered the city's usual symphony. No taxi horns. No street vendor calls. Just the whisper of snow against Alexander Langston's floor-to-ceiling windows, 30 floors above a world that stopped moving. His penthouse exhales its temperature-controlled breath, every surface reflecting the cold perfection of a life designed to keep chaos at arm's length. Then the private elevator chimes. Emma Chen stumbles into his lobby with a sleeping child bundled against her chest, her coat soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face. She sways slightly, from exhaustion or cold or the weight of what she's carrying. The leather messenger bag in her white-knuckled grip looks like it's the only thing keeping her upright. She shouldn't be here. Can't be here. His security protocols don't fail. But she is. Their eyes meet across the marble expanse, and Alexander sees it immediately. This woman is holding on to something by the thinnest thread, and that thread is about to wrap around his throat. Her gaze isn't pleading, it's accounting. Measuring him. Cataloging whether the man in the $1,000 cashmere can be trusted with the truth that's about to detonate both their lives. Mr. Langston, she says, and her voice is steady in a way that suggests she's used every reserve of strength to make it so. My name is Emma Chen. And I have something you need to see before anyone else does. Alexander recognizes that name. He knows exactly what she's carrying in that bag. And he knows that the careful distance he's maintained between his world and the truth has just collapsed into nothing. Alexander's head of security materializes within 90 seconds, tablet already glowing with breach protocols and failed checkpoints. Sir, we're trying to determine, but Alexander raises one hand, his attention fixed on the woman who somehow penetrated $3 million worth of security infrastructure while carrying a sleeping child. She's shaking. Not from fear. He's seen fear in boardrooms and depositions, knows its particular flavor, but from something closer to the edge of human endurance. The child's face is pressed against her shoulder, small fist clutching her collar, and the fierce protectiveness in her posture tells Alexander everything he needs to know about her priorities. Show me, he says quietly, dismissing the security team with a gesture that brooks no argument. They hesitate, exchanging glances that question his judgment, but they go. Emma shifts the child's weight and reaches into the messenger bag with a hand that trembles slightly. What she extracts is a photocopy, edges worn from handling, but the signature at the bottom is unmistakable. Alexander's lungs forget their function. His father's handwriting, that distinctive aggressive scrawl, authorizing a transaction to a shell corporation Alexander has never heard of. There are 200 more pages, Emma says. All like this. All connecting your father's company to fraud networks across 6 countries. I was this close to publishing when my mentor was killed and my newspaper fired me for fabricating sources. Her voice fractures on the last words. I've been running for 18 months. They destroyed my career. They murdered David. And they'll kill me and my nephew if they find us. Alexander meets her eyes and sees not an enemy, but a ghost his father created, still trying to survive the haunting. The penthouse swallows them into its controlled silence. Alexander sets the terms with the practiced efficiency of a man accustomed to negotiating hostile acquisitions. She and the child stay until the storm passes, but she shares everything, every document, every source, every thread of the conspiracy she's been tracing. Emma's counteroffer comes without hesitation. I'll show you what I have, but you help me verify it. And you tell me which of your people might be compromised, because someone in your organization has been cleaning up loose ends. The city below them disappears into white static as night claims the storm. They spread documents across his dining table, Carrara marble that cost more than most people's homes, and Alexander watches his father's shadow empire materialize in photocopies and bank records. Legitimate business layered over money laundering, each transaction carefully structured to look clean until you understood the pattern. He was good at compartmentalization, Alexander says, his voice hollow. I thought I'd inherited that skill. The child stirs, whimpering, and Emma's entire body reorients toward that sound. Alexander finds himself in his kitchen, a space his chef uses but he rarely enters, watching Emma warm a bottle with the exhausted competence of someone who's done this in bus stations and motel rooms and wherever else survival has taken them. His name is Daniel, she says softly, cradling the boy as he drinks. My sister's son. She died 2 months after I went underground. Overdose, they said, but she'd been sober for 3 years. Alexander sees it then, not the conspiracy or the evidence or the threat to everything he's built, but a woman holding a child who represents every choice she's made to keep running instead of surrendering. And for the first time in a decade, his carefully controlled life feels less like an achievement and more like a prison he's built himself. The night peels back in layers of revelation. Emma's documents aren't just evidence of financial crimes, they're a roadmap to a sophisticated laundering operation that funneled money for cartels, corrupt politicians, and worse. Alexander's father hadn't just bent rules, he'd built an entire infrastructure for other people's sins. I spent 10 years cleaning this up, Alexander says, and his voice sounds like something breaking. A decade of legitimate deals, ethical business practices, public transparency. I thought I was redeeming the Langston name. He picks up a page showing transactions dated to last year, 3 years after his father's death. But someone kept using his network. Emma watches him process this, seeing something she didn't expect, genuine horror. The cold billionaire from news profiles doesn't exist in this moment. The man across the table is staring at his inheritance like it's a bomb he's been carrying without knowing. Why didn't you go to the authorities? Alexander asks. Why come here? Emma's laugh is bitter and exhausted. David, my mentor, he tried that. Took everything to the FBI. 3 days later, he was mugged in a parking garage. Random violence, they said. Except the muggers took his phone and laptop but left his wallet. She meets Alexander's gaze. 2 weeks after that, my newspaper killed the story and fired me for fabrication. Someone got to them. Someone with enough reach to destroy careers and bury bodies. Alexander's mind catalogues the implications. If she's right, and the evidence suggests she is, then the conspiracy didn't die with his father. It adapted. Evolved. And whoever inherited it has been using Alexander's decade of legitimate work as cover. I need to know, Emma says quietly. Are you part of this? Or are you another person your father destroyed? The question hangs in the expensive air between them, weighted with consequences neither can escape. Dawn arrives like an apology, pale light filtering through snow that's finally stopped falling. Daniel wakes with the abrupt totality of small children, going from sleep to demanding presence in seconds. The intensity of their investigation fractures around the reality of a 3-year-old who needs breakfast and attention and the simple rhythms of a world that doesn't care about conspiracies. Alexander finds himself on his living room floor, Italian leather furniture pushed aside, building towers from blocks while Emma makes calls to Daniel's daycare, maintaining the fiction of an unexpected vacation. She's good at lying, he realizes. 18 months of survival have made her fluent in necessary deceptions. Higher. Daniel demands, and Alexander adds another block, aware that he's never done this. Never allowed this kind of chaos into his controlled environment. The tower falls, and Daniel's laugh is pure delight, and something in Alexander's chest cracks open. Emma ends her call and finds him there, cradling Daniel while showing him the city view, pointing out buildings and making up stories about the people inside. You're good with him, she says, surprised. I never let myself think about this, Alexander admits. Children. Family. It seemed like a vulnerability I couldn't afford. He looks at Emma. But you did it anyway. Took responsibility for Daniel even though it made you easier to track. He's family. That's not a choice. Emma sits beside them, and for a moment they're just 3 people watching snow melt off skyscrapers. Then Alexander breaks the fragile peace. I've been investigating too. 3 years of quietly looking into my father's partners, trying to understand why certain deals felt wrong. He pulls up files on his tablet. I thought I was being paranoid. Turns out I wasn't paranoid enough. If we combine what you have with what I've found, we might actually understand who's running the network now, Emma finishes. Marcus Webb arrives at noon with his usual punctuality, security briefing in hand and that calm competence Alexander has trusted for a decade. But Emma's entire body goes rigid when she sees him through the penthouse windows, and Alexander feels the temperature in the room drop. "That's him," she whispers. "Marcus Webb. He was the last person David met before he died." There's no time for questions. Marcus is already entering, his professional smile in place, and Alexander has to make a split-second decision about whether to trust 10 years of loyalty or the terrified certainty in Emma's eyes. He chooses Emma. "Marcus, this is Emma Chen, a business consultant trapped by the storm," Alexander says smoothly. "Emma, my head of security." Marcus's gaze sweeps over Emma with practiced efficiency, and Alexander sees the moment of recognition, brief, controlled, then buried under professional courtesy. "Ms. Chen." Unfortunate timing with the weather. His attention shifts to Daniel, who's watching cartoons with studied intensity. "Family?" "Nephew," Emma says, her voice steady despite the way her hand finds Daniel's shoulder, protective and possessive. The conversation proceeds through ordinary territory, storm damage, transportation disruptions, when the roads might clear. Marcus delivers his security briefing and departs with the same calm professionalism he always shows. But after the elevator closes, Alexander and Emma stand frozen until the silence confirms they're alone. "He knew you," Alexander says. They pull up security footage, months of archived data, and track Marcus's movements through the building. After midnight, when Alexander is asleep, Marcus has been accessing files. Private documents. Financial records. Everything Alexander has been compiling about his father's network. "He's not protecting you," Emma says, watching Marcus's image on screen. "He's protecting what your father built. You're not his employer, Alexander. You're his assignment." Marcus returns 4 hours later, and this time he brings a team. They don't knock. The private elevator opens, and 6 men in tactical gear materialize in Alexander's lobby like a nightmare made flesh. Marcus leads them, no longer wearing the mask of loyal security chief. "Mr. Langston, Ms. Chen," he says, and his voice has shed all pretense of courtesy. "I need the evidence Emma brought, and I need the locations of any backup copies she's hidden." He looks at Daniel, who's gone very still beside Emma. "Cooperate, and the child stays safe." Alexander steps between Marcus and Emma instinctively, his body making a decision his mind is still processing. "You've worked for me for 10 years. I've worked for the organization for 20, Marcus corrects. Your father was a client. You were supposed to be containment, the legitimate face that kept authorities from looking deeper. But you started asking questions. Investigating your own company." He shakes his head. "Emma's arrival just moved up our timeline. We would have handled you eventually." The penthouse lockdown protocols, designed to protect Alexander from external threats, activate with a whisper of hydraulics. Blast shutters seal the windows. Reinforced doors lock. The fortress becomes a cage. "Several of your board members are with us," Marcus continues, moving deeper into the penthouse, his team fanning out to search. "Your CFO, your general counsel, 3 of your senior directors. They've been managing your father's network while you played at redemption." His smile is almost pitying. "You really thought you were cleaning up his legacy? You were the cover story, Alexander. Nothing more." Emma's hand finds Alexander's, her grip fierce and desperate. They back toward the study, toward the panic room Alexander installed but never thought he'd need. Marcus sees the movement and signals his team, but Alexander and Emma are already through the door, steel-reinforced barriers slamming shut between them and the men who've come to erase them. The panic room is 12 feet square, equipped with communications equipment and supplies for 72 hours. Alexander's architect called it paranoid excess. Right now it feels like inadequate salvation. Emma clutches Daniel, who's crying silently into her shoulder, while Alexander pulls up the security feeds showing Marcus's team methodically searching the penthouse. They'll get through eventually, Alexander says. This door will buy us maybe 6 hours. He turns to the control panel, where one particular protocol glows ready. I can destroy everything. All the files, yours, mine, every piece of evidence. There's an electromagnetic pulse that will fry every drive in the building. We'd be safe. Emma stares at him, understanding the weight of what he's offering. And the conspiracy survives. They kill us anyway, eventually, but at least they win clean. Or we transmit everything, Alexander continues, his fingers hovering over a different set of controls. Broadcast to news organizations, law enforcement, regulatory agencies. Encrypted packages to 50 different locations. He meets her eyes. But I go down with them. My company crashes. My name becomes synonymous with corruption. Guilty by inheritance, guilty by association. Every legitimate thing I've built gets buried under my father's sins. Emma expects him to hesitate. Every powerful man she's ever exposed chose self-preservation when the moment came. They'd sacrifice others, burn evidence, destroy witnesses, anything to protect their kingdoms. But Alexander's hands are already moving across the keyboard, uploading files to secure servers. His own father's documents mixing with Emma's evidence. Bank records, transactions, names of everyone involved. What are you doing? Emma breathes. I've spent 10 years trying to control the narrative, Alexander says, and his voice is steady despite the way his fingers tremble. Building walls, managing information, keeping everything contained. Maybe it's time I just told the truth. He looks at Daniel, still pressed against Emma's chest. You kept running to protect him. I can do one thing to protect both of you. The upload completes. Evidence streams across networks, copies replicating beyond reach. Through the security feed, they watch Marcus realize what's happening, his professional calm finally cracking into fury. The evidence hits the internet like a detonation. News organizations scramble. Social media explodes. And law enforcement, already monitoring Alexander's building because of Emma's disappeared investigation, mobilizes with the kind of speed that only comes when powerful people are caught red-handed. The assault team arrives 90 minutes after Alexander triggers the upload. They breach the penthouse with controlled efficiency, and through the panic room's monitors, Alexander and Emma watch Marcus and his team subdued, disarmed, arrested. Board members are pulled from their homes. The CFO is detained at the airport, apparently fleeing. The general counsel tries to delete files from his home computer, but the evidence is already beyond his reach. Alexander's phone begins ringing, board members who weren't involved, lawyers, PR consultants, journalists. He ignores all of them, focused on the feeds showing his company's stock price in freefall. By the time the tactical team clears the panic room and confirms they're safe, Alexander's net worth has dropped by 40%. The police want statements. Federal agents want interviews. Prosecutors want cooperation. Emma handles Daniel while Alexander speaks with investigators, his voice steady as he explains everything, his father's network, his own unwitting complicity in covering up crimes he never knew existed, his decision to expose it all. When the authorities finally leave and the penthouse empties of everyone except Alexander, Emma, and Daniel, the silence feels different. Not controlled. Not curated. Just empty. You could have protected yourself, Emma says softly. Daniel is asleep in her arms, exhausted by the chaos. Destroyed my evidence, spun the story differently. You had options. No, Alexander replies, looking at the city through windows no longer sealed. I really didn't. Not if I wanted to be the person I've been pretending to be. He turns to her. You didn't run. Even though staying put you in danger. Neither did you. They stand together in the ruins of Alexander's carefully constructed life, And what grows in the silence isn't romance or resolution, but something more fundamental, the recognition that they've both survived their worst moment by refusing to be the people they were expected to be. Spring arrives slowly, the city thawing in increments. Alexander's penthouse stands empty, sold to cover legal fees and settlements. He's testifying in trials now, consulting with prosecutors, his face no longer on magazine covers celebrating wealth but in courtrooms dissecting corruption. Emma finds him outside the courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon, Daniel's hand in hers. The boy breaks free and runs to Alexander with the absolute trust of children who've decided someone is safe. Alexander catches him, lifts him, and Emma sees how natural the gesture has become over 3 months of supervised visits and careful relationship building. The journal offered me my old position back, Emma says. Investigative editor. Full creative control. She studies Alexander's face for his reaction. I told them I'd think about it. They walk through streets that no longer feel hostile, Daniel between them, chattering about preschool and a field trip to the aquarium. The rhythm is ordinary in a way neither of them has experienced, no running, no hiding, no carefully constructed walls. I've been looking at apartments, Alexander says. Nothing like the penthouse. Something normal. With a second bedroom. He glances at Emma. In case Daniel wanted a space. If you're staying in the city. Emma stops walking, meeting his eyes. 3 months ago, she breached his fortress expecting a villain and found someone as trapped as she was. I'm staying, she says. We're staying. They end up at a window in Alexander's temporary apartment, modest, human-scaled, with a view of the park instead of the city's power centers. Daniel plays with blocks on the floor, building towers that fall and get rebuilt, and Alexander realizes he doesn't miss the penthouse. Doesn't miss the control or the carefully managed image. I never wanted my life exposed, he tells Emma, watching spring green emerge on the trees. But I'm grateful it was you who did it. Emma's hand finds his. You exposed it yourself. I just gave you the excuse. Below them, the city moves in its endless patterns, and for the first time in either of their lives, they're not watching it from behind glass or running through its streets in fear. They're simply here, building something fragile and real from the rubble of everything they had to destroy to finally be free.